ridges and the high elevation slopes that see a lot of exposure to that north to northwest wind. So that's where we're seeing most of the wind. We just set up a weather station up on the north end of the fire to get more accurate information of what's going on up there. So we'll be able to tie in our forecast a lot better based off of that instrumentation. Overnight, we've been seeing very little relative humidity recovery. What that does is it's basically your moisture overnight, and usually we see our values of relative humidity jump upwards of 40 to 50 to even 60% on really good recovery nights. However, we've only been seeing anywhere from about 20 to 25%, which is extremely dry, especially for this time of year. So we'll continue to see that as we head through the remainder of the week here, especially into tomorrow and Thursday as that heat builds in. And I point to this here, and this is our fire weather planning matrix, which is basically just a snapshot at the week ahead. So you see we have red flag tomorrow, hot, dry, unstable conditions, similar to what today was as we head through Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday. Now, as we head later in the week, and especially into the latter half of the weekend, we see potential for some increasing moisture over the general area. So what that's going to do at the very least is bring up those humidities. You know, we've been seeing values in the afternoon bottoming out around 8 to 13%, which again is very, very dry. As we start to move into later into the weekend, we could see those humidities bottom out around 20% or even higher as we start to work some more moisture into the area. And of course, with the moisture brings the potential for showers and thunderstorms during the afternoon. So we'll be watching that as we head forward. We'll bring at least some chance for some rains over the fire, which, low chance is still much better than no chance. So we'll be taking a look at that as we go forward. And like Kevin said, we'll be standing aside afterwards for questions. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Flores. I'm the fire behavior analyst with the team. As the fire behavior analyst, my job is to try to predict the growth of the fire over the next 1 to 3 days. We also have another person that's helping us to be a long-term analyst where we can look out farther. So we're taking this view of the fire and trying to predict where it's going to go, and that way we work with the team on building our strategies and tactics. And in a way, it's a way for us to keep the firefighters safe on the ground, so that we're putting them in places where we know we can be effective and safe. And so with the conditions we have out there, and this right here is a chart. It's called an ERC chart, and really all it is kind of a measurement of how much stuff is there available to burn. The hotter it is, the drier it is, the more stuff that can burn. The wetter it is, the less stuff. Grass gets greener, the sticks get more moisture in them. So this just basically measures that. The red line up on top is historical highs back about 15 years. The blue is the lows that we've had. So, and the gray is the median in between. The black is where we're at now. And so as you can see, our conditions, and also this ties directly into fire danger. That Smokey Bear's arm where he says it's high, very high, moderate fire danger. This is something that we put as a component into that. And so as we look at this, we say, well, it's high relative to any other time of the year, but for this time of year, it doesn't look too bad. But there's a couple other factors that we look at for the fire environment. So this is kind of telling us some information about the fuels. He just told us about the weather. We also have the component of the land itself, the topography, and all those factors come into play to produce the fire behavior and what we've seen out there. So what happened was when we had a fire that started, it started in a very difficult place to be able to hit it, but it started moving because it got caught by really strong winds, and it was that the fuels were dry enough that it could be able to move and move fast. And as it did that, it builds up a head of steam and can continue to move. And so as the fire grows, obviously it gets into new areas, and then it becomes a bigger problem for us and be able to put people in safely and fight the fire. So again, back to the fire environment, we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at how is this going to continue to be into the future. And that's where, working with the IMET again, we look at the future and what is the fire going to continue to do? We've seen that at these conditions, it's having this kind of fire behavior. If you saw the smoke column that was out there just about an hour ago, how tall that was, it was actually it was taller than it had been in the previous days. And that's a factor of the weather, that's instability what we look at. So as the weather continues to get hotter and drier and more unstable, unfortunately, we're probably going to have those kind of tall columns, and that's going to play into the fire as well and have that potential for greater fire behavior. And so what we're seeing again is all these factors coming into play to produce a fire that's obviously can move across the landscape the way it has been doing. Unfortunately, we're going to continue on this hot and dry period until, hopefully we get some moisture. And as we all know, around this time, we should be getting that monsoon push. And sometimes we can look at this time of the year and hopefully we get the monsoons coming up and it's enough moisture and we would call it a season ending event or at least a season slowing event. We get enough moisture that we can get in there and get around it, modifies the fire behavior. We're hoping that would be the case as the moisture comes up this time, but from a lot of information we're getting is that the monsoons are going to be dry. Sometimes we call them a non-soon. Just gets drier for us, and so hopefully we can hope that that's the way that it goes. But again, we got to kind of play that one out and see it. So again, that's what the conditions that we're dealing with right now. Not the most favorable for us, but this is the hand we've been dealt. And again, if there's other questions after this, so I'll be happy to answer them.
Good evening. My name is Rich Stiles. I'm one of the operations section chiefs for Team 2. We took the fire over yesterday morning at 0600, and the previous folks were doing everything they could with the resources we had, and so we appreciate those folks for setting us up a little bit. Anyway, so this is a full suppression fire. We're doing everything we can to try to keep the footprint as small as we can. And by doing that, we're going to utilize any and all tactics and strategies that we can to do that. Using natural barriers, maybe use a little bit of fire, using dozer lines, using the transition from the heavy timber down into the lesser fuels where we can really attack it. We've got a lot of topography terrain here. Some places almost making it impossible to get some of our firefighters in there without getting them hurt. So we're trying to mitigate all these different things to keep this footprint as small as we can. So when we come in, we usually come in, we bring in a lot of resources with us. They start showing up. I think maybe we're up to somewhere around 450, 500 people, something like that, I think is where we're getting to. They still continue to go in and still continue to deploy those. So in order for us to keep kind of rein on all those folks and where they're at and what they're doing, we've got to break things out and assign them to different pieces of the fire. And so on this fire, we've kind of got it broke north and south. North is what we call branch 1, to the south is what we're calling branch 5. And within those, we've got them broken out into divisions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the north. I'm going to start with the divisions that are in there, which is just kind of a geographic area where they are and kind of what's going on in there and what the folks are doing. Okay? All right, so we're going to start up by Signal Peak. He's going to try to follow along here just because I can't really point to it here. So up towards Signal Peak, back up to the north of the fire here, near the point of ignition. So we've got a few crews up there. A lot of our resources are down here, trying to protect the values down here. But we do have folks up there because we're trying to get folks spread out all around the fire. They've accessed that road, that 113 road that takes you on up into the mountain there near Signal Peak and up toward the Silver King mine. And the crews have constructed line basically from Signal Peak back around to going back to the northeast along that road system right adjacent to the fire. And those folks have tied it back into the fire, and then they're going to be doing a little bit of cleanup in there with fire potentially tomorrow to kind of lock it into the rock, that whole rock system that runs from north to south on the west side of the fire. Okay, so that's going to be a natural feature that we're going to utilize there. So we're tying that off kind of in Signal Peak, and we're going to start moving around the north end. So once we get tied into that road system there, the 113, then we're going to take it over to about where that Max Reed Trail takes off, if folks are familiar with that. And from Max Reed Trail, we're going to work it up just up on the ridge, up on top is a proposal for the line that the guys have all scouted out and got approved. And then from there, they're going to work it back down to another road system that takes you around to Sergeant Mountain. Okay. From Sergeant Mountain, I'll be honest, we're struggling. There's not a lot of options to bring that back around close, other than potentially going down the highway. We're looking all through there into that country around the Elk Ranch, and I believe it's Big Rock, that various country. But that country from Beaver Creek back up towards Big Rock and kind of up towards that Sargent Mountain, trying to come back through there. We're looking at all the options we can, but we're kind of running out of them other than coming back down to the bottom. So we're going to continue to watch and see what the fire does. If we can find an opportunity where we can send people direct right on that fire's edge, we will. With the current conditions, we can't quite do that, so we're looking at all other alternatives. So if the weather changes and starts pushing this thing back to the north, we're prepared to do that. But we're also prepared to come in much closer if the fire presents itself that way, okay? So as we move a little bit further down on the southeast side, and what I just talked about was Division Alpha, then we moved around into Division Zulu. Now we're coming into Foxtrot. Foxtrot is part of the division that we were looking at, trying to find whatever we can in there. We're not having a lot of success, and that division pretty much runs down to about where Beaver Creek is, which Beaver Creek is right there where the hand's at. So from Beaver Creek, you can see that sketch line in there. That's basically showing a dozer line. You see the fire's edge. That was when the fire's moving. We've had crews working from Beaver Creek all the way back down to Bullion, doing everything they can to start mopping that thing up, cleaning that thing up, securing that line up. They've been in there all day yesterday, all day today. We'll probably have more folks in there tomorrow. As you see, that's one of the closer proximity pieces of fire that we had to town here. So they continue to work on that, and we'll continue to have crews in there, make sure we can try to put that to bed, okay? So as we follow dozer line down, it hits Bullion, and then you've got Bullion Creek itself. We've got structures. You've got Miners Park up there. There's some other private structures in there. We've got some other water facilities in there. Right now, everybody's seeing the fire activity and things that are going on in there. It's not. It has not actually progressed up Bullion all that far. At least a little bit ago, it had not. It looks more ominous than it is as far as how far it's gone. What it's doing right now is it's getting a little bit kind of circling underneath itself, making a short little run up, and so you're starting to see that. That's showing a lot of smoke. The stuff in the very bottom, the last report I had in there is that stuff's burning pretty cool in the very bottom, which is really going to help with the structures. A few hours ago, when the activity did pick up, we had folks ran in there on a side-by-side. We don't have anybody in there now, but we ran folks in there on a side-by-side trying to mitigate what we can with the structures in there. We've got pump and hose around everything in there we can. They fired up the pumps and the hoses, everything's running, and then those folks came right back out on the side-by-side because that's a box canyon. If fire were to get going in there, we're potentially lose firefighters in there. So we're just not going to do that, okay? So if conditions warrant, at some point this evening, early morning, whatever, we'll probably run folks back in there, refuel tanks, make sure things are still operational to help try to protect those structures the best that we can. They were all prepped with saw line, again, hoses, pumps, all that thing, everything we can do based on the conditions of where they're at, okay? So that's kind of what's going on up in that Bullion Canyon piece. And then I'm sure everybody's seeing the piece as you go further south, that dozer line that stops right there, kind of on the BLM, that's the kind of orange color. Those folks, or that line there, continue down that road, and it's all dozer line all the way into the mine there, into the Deer Trail mine. Tied into the Deer Trail mine road systems, and then it works its way on out to the Cottonwood road system, okay? So the fire that you're seeing on this side of Bullion, on the south side of Bullion, is not to that dozer line. What it's doing is it's just kind of flanking itself along the base of that slope, and we're letting it do that. We don't want to add fire to it. We don't want to increase the intensity. We don't want to do that. It's doing okay right in there where it's at. We're letting it back to that dozer line so we don't increase that fire behavior in there. Okay? We've got folks in there keeping tabs on that. We'll have folks in there all night tonight doing the same. And all right, we'll continue moving south. So anyway, that piece is looking really good. We've got a spot, if they have to burn out, they've got the dozer line to do that, at least a defensive posture there to make sure we hold that. And they'll just, if they have to do that, they're not gonna go past it, they'll just stay right with that fire. So it's gonna be small intensity, maybe a little pulse burst here and there, but that would be it if they have to do something currently. As we get down, back down into the mine there, they identified there is a large drill rig in there too. That stuff's been prepped. Some of the other structures and things have been prepped in there. And anyway, we're doing everything we can with some of the structures and things that are there. We've got that road down to Cottonwood. So we're looking at other lines and places we can go currently with things. What the concern is right up there at the kind of the tip of the fire, there's a large bowl right there. There's not a whole lot we can do to keep that fire from getting into that bowl, but the concern is if it gets into that little bowl just above the tip of that fire, the potential for spotting in there is pretty dang good, okay? If it spots over the ridge top, then there's about 3/10 of a mile, you start getting into another large timber stringer. If we get into that, it gets right into that next ridge that we potentially would like to use. And so we're gonna keep tabs on that, and if there's any defensive things we can do up there, we'll try to do something. We got a few folks up there keeping eyes on that, making sure it's not doing any spotting. Right now, it has not gotten to that ridge up, clear up there on top, right in there. Has not got there. Okay. So back down to taking off from the mine system and coming out this ridge system. See how far I can move here. So coming along this ridge system here is tentatively what we're looking at for line. We've had folks running all over that thing and following this major ridge system all the way out as a proposed line of trying to get. We do not want to get fire into Cottonwood. I think we all know that. So we're going to do everything we can to try to do that, but this may be a little bit problematic, so that's why we're starting to pay close attention to that and see what we can do. And then basically following ridge systems and trying to tie that stuff back into the south end of all that rock screed and rock mountain that comes down towards the south, okay? So that kind of encompasses the whole fire. Now, these lines I'm talking about are not necessarily where we're gonna go. If the opportunity presents itself for us to go direct, pick things up much closer, weather changes, we're gonna do it. Okay? Anything we can to lessen this footprint. Under current conditions, this is what we got to look at. Because if we get way too close and then it gets over that line, then we're not prepared further out. We've got to have time. We don't want to be within that time wedge. We've got to give ourselves time to get people in, to do the work. And right now, I don't have enough resources to put out here just yet. Because we're still pushing folks around the corner. Okay? And I think we'll do questions later. Okay. Yeah, Edna Peaks is down here to the south a little bit. Okay.
I'm horrible at speaking in public, but I just want to tell this community that we love you. And this sheriff's office is do everything in our power to try to keep you safe. I'd like to thank a few people before I get started. Is that our we just elected a new search and rescue commander about a week ago, and he's getting a baptism by fire. So he's probably ready to go home and crawl in a hole. But I just want the community to know that we love this community, and we love everybody in it, and we do whatever it takes to round of applause, really, because he's these guys, the big guys want to turn the power out sometimes sooner than they probably should. He's kind of been on our side a little bit, and we sure appreciate it, Kenny. We do. So we've been on this fire and probably been not sleeping for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, chasing things around, and I think I'm pretty convinced that it was started by lightning, and we've known this has been a tinderbox for a long time. We've talked about it. Them dead trees up there, it's been a worry. Bullion's been a worry for us for 10 years, and so we're pretty fortunate that we don't have a bunch of houses burn up. And you know, these guys that's come in here with all this equipment, I know I'm probably one of the less biggest fans of the federal government, but these guys have done awesome. They're, you know, when you need them, they come here, and they, some of the stuff that they've been in, I'm just amazed to believe that they'd even drive an ATV up into Bullion right now, because it's a death trap. So that being said, I want to say thanks to this community for all of the donations and the water and Gatorade and well, if you go down to the IC, it looks like a Walmart. So thank you very much. If you will just respect, we're going to have to keep these roads closed for a little while. Please respect that, and don't come up. And we've had people come up and bullheaded and try to go through our roadblocks and want to sit there and argue until, you know, we have to send an officer up there, and it's just taken away from other stuff. So just respect we wouldn't be blocking these roads if it wasn't for a reason. And you can see what the reason is on that mountain right there. So we just want to tell you that we love you to death, and we'll do anything that you guys need to keep this community running and safe. And we're going to try to get the people that we had evacuated relocated, and that's not really what I know that we're all focused on a fire right now, but we've got a much bigger problem coming, and I've seen it in other communities and in Dry Creek and our communities, that we get a big rainstorm and we're going to be underwater now. So the county commission, we're in the process right now of doing a disaster declaration, and so we can get some funding to build some basins and some different things to try to contain the floods that's going to start coming when we start getting rains, and hopefully we can get that by Wednesday of next week, and get the governor's office and everybody involved to try to get us some way to mitigate the floods that's coming. Because I think that when you have 25 feet of snow on the mountains, dropping the bucket to what it's going to do if it just rains up there right now. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Appreciate all of the community that's stepped in and donated, and all of the things that you've done to help the sheriff's office and to help all of these people. So thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jared Whitmer. I'm the district ranger for the Beaver Ranger District. So I live in Beaver, but this is part of my area, and I'm also the agency administrator. So one thing I wanted to do, can we give another round of applause for Sheriff Martin? Doing a good job. So, just looking out here, I feel like I should be conducting a sacrament meeting or something, but it's just a little different being in a church doing this. Definitely want to thank the mayor, the sheriff, the search and rescue team. They really helped us as this emerging incident came about last week. It was a very quick response to be able to get people up on the mountain and try to clear. We had a little incident trying to find some lost people. We got them out and safe, and it was just all the locals helping with the local knowledge to get there, and I really appreciate that. I want to thank the community for the support that you've shown, just seeing all the signs around town, all the food that's been brought in for the firefighters and everybody that's helping. I really appreciate that for sure. I want to thank The IMT coming in, that's kind of our big call for help. We had the local Type 3 team came in initially. I see the fire and did the best they can, and then we pulled the trigger, I think within the first 2 hours, that, hey, we needed a lot of help, and we know this is probably going to go big, just knowing the fuels and the conditions and the weather that was forecasted. So definitely appreciate their help and for being able to bring in this horsepower. It's pretty impressive to, within 2 to 3 days, to have 500 people here on scene to help get this corralled. So definitely want to thank them. Definitely ask for your patience as we try to figure out where we can box this in and kind of go direct on this fire. Please, as Marty mentioned, please observe the closure order. That's for your safety, for the safety of the firefighters, and if they got to get out, if they're having to deal with somebody that's stuck or get in there where they're not supposed to be, it just causes a very unsafe condition. So we just ask you to observe that. And then again, just thank you for your patience and for your time to be here. We want to give you the information that we can as soon as we have it each and every day. So yeah, thank you for being here, and I'll hand it out to Nick or Tyler, sorry.
All right, good evening, everybody. Tyler Hecht, Incident Commander, trainee. So just a few things for you. We've been doing a lot of thank yous, and that's because of the support we receive when we come in here. We talked about 500 people coming in within a couple of days. That takes a lot of logistics and takes a lot of support. We've had nothing but open arms from this community, and that's with fire in your guys' backyard. So we really appreciate that. Every time we need something, there's somebody there that's willing to help. So thank you for that. I just want to highlight the coordination and the way that this goes. So we're working for Forest Service, State of Utah, and BLM. And then we're in conjunction with the counties and anybody that has a stake in this fire. So there's a lot of coordination that goes on. We're meeting with them either on every couple days or daily if needed to have conversations on what we're going to do as this continues to move around on the landscape. So just be aware of that. A little bit about what an incident management team is. So there's all these blue shirts walking around with yellow logos on them. So our job is to come in here and help manage this incident. We talked about 500 people. It takes a lot to make sure that they're getting fed, that we're keeping track of the cost and what's going on there. Operations has a lot going on, as you can see. And so that's what this team does, and there's a lot of moving parts going on with that. So that's what you're going to see these team members running around. We want to make sure you guys are getting the information on what's going on a daily basis. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit on where you can go find that information. So just one thing I want to highlight, we talked about this being a full suppression fire, which means our goal is to go put this out as small as possible. But we've also talked about the terrain, the vegetation that's out there, the conditions. It's obviously been really hot. We're all feeling that, how dry it is. So those are the things that we're battling daily. We don't have a lot of control over those variables. So it's going to take some time, and this fire is going to be on the landscape for a little bit. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that as we move forward. And our goal is to put this thing out as small as possible. We're going to continue to work to do that. Rich talked about areas that are just going to be tough to get into, and we're just going to have to make decisions as we get in there, and that's where working with our partners, working with you guys, communicating that, and making sure everybody's on the same page as we move forward with that. All right, so we're going to give you guys just a little bit of information here on where to go find information. So that's the main thing, is want to make sure you guys are updated and know what's going on. Obviously, you guys are watching this daily, and there's things that come out throughout the day, and you guys need to be able to go find that. So I'll turn that over now to these guys. You good?
We would like to thank y'all for coming to the meeting, and your QR code has IncyWeb and Facebook, so make sure that you look up on that. That's a good source of information. We do have an email list. Make sure that you look at the email list or get put on the email list if you want to be on there. That email every morning, that gives you all the information on the fire, and it's a really good source. But this concludes our meeting, and we're gonna start our breakdown now.
Good evening, everybody. Bill Davis, the town mayor. I'd like to amplify just a little bit the thanks that we have for the team. especially for the folks that are up there. We've got a lot of firefighters up there in the canyon. I've spent a fair amount of time up there. It's incredible.
Talking to the microphone.
Like so. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, one of the things that I would like to amplify with what we were talking about, with what comes next, we're already working on the engineering, trying to figure out how to do the check dams and take care of some issues that would come after this. That has all been that's all been worked through the county commissioners, and I'd really like to thank the county commissioners for getting right on this. Yes, a big hand for them. The governor's office has reached out to us on 2 occasions, taking care of a couple of items that have been very difficult to work out locally. That has been a big help. Once again, thank you for everything that you've all done, and I can't overemphasize the amount of paperwork that has gone on behind the scenes. It is truly amazing. But with that being said, thank you again, folks. I'm really glad to see you all here.
Thanks so much. So again, we want to thank you for coming. My name is Jared McNeel. I'm another one of the public information officers with the team. And so one of the things we do is not only bring the fire's information to you, but get information from you and bring that to the fire. And so one of the requests we've had from you, member of the community there, is his name's Norm. He's a gentleman right there. You want to raise your hand there, Norm? He's lost his cat a couple days ago. He's offering a $100 reward. So if anybody happens to run across his cat, we'll be posting this on our Facebook page later with a contact number. And then that's going to conclude our meeting. You're going to have these different stations here where our overhead can answer some questions for you if you have anything specific you'd like to ask about any of those sections. Thanks everyone for coming.
Joe, I sent you a